Hey everyone, it's Erin with Hail Varsity, and I am joined by Greg Smith, also of Hail Varsity. Hello, Greg, how are you?
Hi, I am well. I'm excited for everything that is going on this week. It's a big week.
We are getting dangerously close to June, which means it's also the end of the dead period. So, a lot happening in your world in the next couple of weeks. We won't take too much of your time, but as always, we have recruiting questions that come in. So we have started this series of the recruiting question of the week, and we have really appreciated the conversation that sparks from these. In fact, this week's question, which isn't so much a question but more of a comment, came as a result of last week's question, which is kind of cool. So let's just dive into it. Greg, the question last week was basically about how much stock should be placed in the 2022 recruiting rankings, knowing that, these are recruits that didn't have a full, they're not going to have had a full recruiting cycle of evaluations. Now they'll get
Mhm.
this summer and into the fall. So when we asked that question, Zach Jennings on Facebook said, it matters less and less because half will probably transfer anyway. The money is in the walk-on program, and the coaches need to coach these kids up. So when you read this, you you kind of had an idea that was sparked from it. So what are your thoughts on Zach's comment?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because I don't like it's one of those things that I feel like people, and I saw in the comments, like people kind of jumped on him a little bit because it sounds like kind of an angry thing, but at the same time, I think that there's some merit to what he was saying in pieces, right? So I do think that while it's not half of the kids that will transfer, some will leave. Like I think that we just know historically, based on the trends here recently, and especially over the last couple of seasons around college football, the transfer portal is popping all the time, and I feel
It's
like
popping.
it is, and there are probably more people that have gone into it right now as we are talking, right? And so that is something that you have to account for as a college football coach now that you did not have to worry about even 5 years ago, right? Like there was transfers then, but it was not at the rate that it is now. Now, with that being said, though, on the other side, I do think that Nebraska has done a really nice job of finding ways to bring talent into the program despite having a higher than they would want to attrition rate under Scott Frost, right? So if I just list out a couple of situations that have happened here recently. So Nebraska had their entire 2019 class of wide receivers transfer out, and it doesn't necessarily feel like there's a huge hole at the position right now. Why is that? It's because they continue to recruit wide receivers, yes, but they also continue to find ways to bring them in via transfer, like Samari Toure. Oliver Martin was added as a walk-on. Wyatt Lever added and developed, as he was saying, as a walk-on, right? If you flip on the defensive side, where you have Chris Kolarevic, who I'm always messing up his name, who is going to start for them at inside linebacker, right? And you have other guys. We've had Darian Daniels, who's come in as a transfer and become a captain, right? And so Nebraska has done a really nice job of saying, hey, we don't necessarily want these transfers to happen, and we would love to keep everyone here and develop them for 4 years. But knowing that this is the reality of college football, we'll continue bringing in talent in any way that we can to try and boost the team.
And recruiting rankings are always such a volatile thing where people either, really support them or they really don't. Now, when we look at like the NFL draft and you look at what those recruits or what their recruiting rankings were going into college, you have a lot of talent there. And
Right.
that talent was identified early. But I do think you always have to be, and Greg, you can give me your input on this too. I think you always have to be aware that there are diamonds in the rough. There are gems that you may not have known about or maybe didn't get the same kind of fanfare because they didn't have that recruiting ranking match. And I think you actually might see more of that in these COVID years because the evaluation was different. But those rankings matter, but it's also all within context.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that context is really key. And I feel like I write this several times a year in that the ratings are good and they serve a very good function. And they give you a baseline, though, of what to expect from a recruiting class as a whole, but then also from individual recruits. But there are always examples that go the other way. And the best shining example right now on Nebraska's roster is their probably best player, Cam Taylor-Britt, who came in with very little fanfare and had never played his position before in high school before he got to Nebraska. And now he is Nebraska's best hope for a higher round draft pick on the team. And he not only was like, had not a lot of like big star rankings, like he picked Nebraska over Troy and Missouri. So it wasn't exactly like everyone was beating his door down to have him come to their team either. There are always exceptions to that rule. And you find schools all over the country that make a living off of finding those exceptions to the rule.
It's going to be interesting to watch. Like you said, busy week, but busy couple of weeks as Nebraska, as you covering this all, get ready for the end of the dead period and what will ultimately be camp season, more in-person evaluation. Things are going to change here very, very soon in the recruiting world. So I hope you're ready for it. Are you ready, Greg?
I am ready as I can be, right?
Well, if you are somebody who's like, I want to know more, because you always do, Greg will have more on this topic in the recruiting notebook this evening, 6 p.m. Central at hailvarsity.com, brought to you by Pinnacle Bank. So we really appreciate that. But it's not the only time that you're going to get recruiting coverage throughout the week. In addition to everything else he's got, from interviews to, pieces that explain kind of what's going on, especially even this, like when you talk about like where Nebraska might be looking in the transfer portal. Greg has his recruiting notebook Sunday through Thursday, 6 p.m. Central at Hail Varsity. So just go ahead and bookmark that. It's appointment reading. You want to check it out, but he'll have more on this specific topic tonight. So come back to hailvarsity.com because there's plenty to talk about. And like we keep saying, it's going to be a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I'm excited and appreciative of the discussion that was spun off of this. And I'm excited to dive more into it tonight.
Yeah, and if you want to leave a question or just continue this conversation, you can do so right here on this video. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. But, we appreciate the conversation that happens on Twitter as well. You can tweet at Greg Smith. It's at Greg Smith HV. I should make sure I say the handle, or at Hail Varsity. But you can also leave a comment on Facebook, whatever is your social platform of choice. Go ahead and leave a comment. You might just see it in the recruiting video next week. But again, we always appreciate it. We'll be back. Keep checking hailvarsity.com. Greg, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.